Shadows of support. The blue glow of the computer screen illuminated Olivia Mercer's face as she squinted at lines of code, her fingers dancing across the keyboard with practiced precision. It was 3 a.m., and the downtown San Francisco office was empty except for her and Daniel Frost, her boyfriend of 5 years and CEO of Quantum Financial Solutions. "How's it coming?" Daniel asked, his voice hoarse from too much coffee and too many investor calls. "Almost there," Olivia replied, not looking up. "The algorithm has a vulnerability in the encryption protocol. Give me 20 minutes. Daniel nodded, returning to his own workstation. This was their rhythm, had been since they met at Stanford's computer science program. While Daniel had the charisma and business acumen that attracted investors, Olivia was the technical genius who made his visions functional. "We're presenting to Blackridge Capital at 9, Daniel reminded her. "If we land this, we're looking at $8 million in Series B funding." Olivia nodded, already aware. She had prepared most of the presentation slides, refined the demo, and now was fixing the security issues that Daniel's developers had overlooked. She hadn't slept properly in weeks, postponing her own research into healthcare applications for artificial intelligence, a passion she'd harbored since watching her grandmother struggle with misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis. By sunrise, Olivia had resolved the security issue and compiled a report detailing the fix. She rubbed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of fatigue before heading to the small bathroom to freshen up for the meeting. "You're brilliant," Daniel said when she returned, planting a quick kiss on her forehead. "This is why we're perfect together. I handle the vision and the people, you handle the details." His words were affectionate, but something in his tone had changed over the past year, a subtle shift from partnership to patronage. The meeting with Blackridge went exactly as Daniel had hoped. The investors were impressed with the platform's security features, Olivia's work, and committed to the full funding amount. Daniel beamed as they shook hands, his tall frame and confident smile capturing all the attention in the room. At the celebration dinner that evening, Daniel raised his glass. "To Quantum's future," the small team cheered, and Daniel continued, "and to my incredible girlfriend who makes sure all my ideas actually work." There was gentle laughter, and Olivia smiled politely, though the recognition felt hollow. Later, that night as they returned to their apartment, Olivia broached the subject that had been weighing on her mind. "I've been thinking about my healthcare AI project again. Now that we've secured this funding and your platform is stable, maybe I could dedicate some time to it." Daniel's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. "The healthcare space is oversaturated. Live. And you don't have the medical background. Focus on what you're good at. Supporting Quantum's infrastructure." He kissed her on the cheek, effectively closing the conversation. "Besides, we need you more than ever with this expansion." Olivia fell silent, watching as Daniel poured himself a whiskey and began scrolling through emails on his phone. 5 years ago, when they'd started dating, he had been the one encouraging her ambitions, staying up late to hear her ideas about revolutionizing diagnostic medicine with machine learning. Somewhere along the way, as Quantum grew and Daniel's reputation as a fintech wonderkind solidified, her dreams had become inconvenient distractions. She gazed out at the San Francisco skyline, city lights twinkling against the night. How many more nights would she spend fixing someone else's vision while her own gathered dust? The question lingered in her mind as she prepared for yet another day in Daniel's shadow, unaware that the breaking point was just weeks away. The breaking point. 3 weeks after securing the Blackridge investment, Quantum Financial Solutions held a gala to celebrate their new headquarters in a gleaming downtown skyscraper. The event was a who's who of Silicon Valley, venture capitalists, mingling with tech journalists and industry pioneers. Olivia wore a midnight blue dress she'd barely had time to shop for, smiling politely as Daniel introduced her as the wizard behind the curtain to investors and partners. "She's the one who makes sure our systems never crash," he'd say with a laugh, before steering conversations back to his vision for revolutionizing fintech. By midnight, Olivia found herself alone on the rooftop terrace, taking a moment away from the networking and small talk. The cool night air was a relief after hours of performative socializing. There you are, came a voice behind her. Priya Sharma, Quantum's newly hired chief marketing officer, approached with 2 glasses of champagne. Thought you might need this. These events can be exhausting. Olivia accepted the glass gratefully. Thanks. I'm not really built for this part of the business. Neither am I, honestly, Priya admitted. But I fake it well. She leaned against the railing beside Olivia. I've been reviewing the architecture of the platform. Your work is extraordinary, particularly the adaptive learning module. Have you considered publishing any of your research? The question caught Olivia off guard. It had been so long since anyone had shown interest in her work beyond its utility to Quantum. I've thought about it, she said, but there's never enough time. And Daniel thinks it's better to keep our innovations proprietary. Priya tilted her head. Daniel seems to have opinions about a lot of things. Before Olivia could respond, the terrace door opened, and Daniel emerged with Thomas Wellington, CEO of a rival fintech company. Liv, there you are, Daniel called, his voice carrying the slight edge it got when he'd had too much to drink. Thomas doesn't believe our processing speed claims. Tell him about your optimization work. For the next 15 minutes, Olivia explained the technical details of the system she'd built, while Daniel occasionally interjected with simplifications or corrections, many of which were actually inaccurate. Priya watched the interaction with observant eyes. When Thomas finally left, impressed by Olivia's explanation despite Daniel's interruptions, Daniel turned to her with an irritated expression. You went too deep into the technical weeds, he criticized. These people don't care about code architecture. They care about results and revenue. He specifically asked about the underlying technology, Olivia countered, her patience wearing thin after a long night. Daniel waved his hand dismissively. Just let me handle these conversations next time. You're better behind the scenes. Priya cleared her throat. Actually, I thought Olivia's explanation was exactly what Thomas needed to hear. He's an engineer by training. He understands the value of what she built. Daniel shot Priya a look that silenced her, then turned back to Olivia. Come on, the Jenkinsons want to meet you before they leave. As they walked back toward the party, Olivia pulled her arm from Daniel's grip. I'm tired, Daniel. I think I'll head home. Don't be ridiculous. This night is important for us. For Quantum. For you, Olivia corrected quietly. This night is important for you. Daniel stopped walking, his jaw tightening. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm tired of being trotted out as your technical support and then tucked away when I've served my purpose. Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. Come on, Liv. You're overreacting. We're a team. Are we? Because lately it feels like I'm just another resource for Quantum, another asset you acquired. His expression darkened. That's not fair. Look at everything we've built. Look at the life we have. The money, the recognition. Your recognition, Olivia interrupted. And what about my healthcare project, the one I've wanted to pursue for years? Daniel sighed with exasperation. Not this again. Liv, that's a pipe dream. You're a brilliant systems architect, but medical AI? That's a completely different field with established players who have decades of medical expertise. I've been studying medical diagnostics for 3 years in what little spare time I have, she insisted. The prototype I've built already shows promising results for early detection patterns. A hobby project isn't a business, Daniel said, dismissively. Be realistic. You've got a good thing here. With me. With Quantum. Something broke inside Olivia then. A dam of frustration and deferred dreams. I want more than to be the woman behind the great Daniel Frost. I want my own work to matter. His face flushed with anger. Your work matters because I made it matter. Do you think anyone would care about your coding abilities if I hadn't built this company around them? Do you think you'd be where you are without me? The words hung in the air between them, sharp and irretrievable. In the silence that followed, Priya quietly slipped away, giving them privacy. Where exactly am I, Daniel? Olivia asked quietly. Living someone else's dream? putting my own aspirations on hold year after year? Daniel ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, his frustration evident. This is the problem with you, Olivia. You don't see the big picture. You get lost in details and pet projects while I'm building an empire. An empire, she repeated. That's what matters to you. It should matter to you too, he snapped. Without me, without this company, you'd just be another coder with big ideas and no platform. You're nothing without me, Olivia. Nothing. The words landed like physical blows. Olivia stood perfectly still, absorbing the pain of them, but also feeling a strange clarity emerge from the hurt. For years she had dimmed her own light to help Daniel shine brighter. She had convinced herself it was love, partnership, sacrifice. But now she saw it for what it was. Erasure. I need to go, she said, her voice steady, despite the storm inside. Fine, go home and cool off. We'll talk in the morning, Daniel replied, already reaching for his phone as it buzzed with a new message. No, Olivia said. I'm not going to our apartment. I'm going to Bethany's. Bethany was her college friend who had always told her she was settling for less with Daniel. Daniel looked up from his phone, finally registering the gravity in her voice. Don't be dramatic. It's late, and we've both had too much to drink. I've never been more sober, Olivia replied. Goodbye, Daniel. As she walked away, Daniel called after her, his voice a mixture of anger and disbelief. This is ridiculous. You'll be back tomorrow when you remember everything I've given you. But Olivia didn't turn around. In her purse was her laptop with the healthcare AI prototype she'd been building in secret. It wasn't nothing. It was a beginning. Seeds of innovation. The first week after leaving, Daniel felt like emerging from a deep cave into blinding sunlight. Olivia moved from Bethany's couch to a small studio apartment in Oakland, far from the luxury high-rise she had shared with Daniel. The space was tiny but entirely hers, a physical representation of her newfound independence. She had expected Daniel to call, to apologize, to beg her to return. Instead, there was a terse email from Quantum's HR department outlining her severance package and a non-compete agreement that would prevent her from working in fintech for 2 years. Daniel had wasted no time in severing their professional ties as well as their personal ones. He can't do this, Bethany insisted over coffee in Olivia's barely furnished apartment. You built half that company's infrastructure. Without proper documentation of my contributions, Olivia replied, surprisingly calm. I was so focused on supporting his vision that I neglected to protect my own interests. You could fight it, Bethany suggested. Get a lawyer. Olivia shook her head, looking down at her laptop where the prototype of her healthcare AI, now named Sentinel, was running a diagnostic simulation. I don't want to fight, Daniel. I want to move forward. The severance package would last 6 months if she was frugal. 6 months to transform Sentinel from a prototype into something real. The non-compete didn't extend to healthcare technology, a detail Daniel had likely overlooked, assuming she would never pursue her pipe dream without his support. For the first time in years, Olivia worked according to her own schedule. She woke early, coded until her eyes burned, then walked along Lake Merritt to clear her mind. She attended medical technology conferences, introduced herself to researchers, and absorbed everything she could about diagnostic challenges in modern healthcare. At one such conference, she met Dr. Julian Ramos, a neurologist frustrated by the limitations of current diagnostic tools for neurodegenerative diseases. Early detection is everything, he explained as they shared a table during lunch. By the time most patients show clinical symptoms, the damage is extensive. But the subtle patterns are there in the data, if only we could identify them sooner. Olivia hesitated, then opened her laptop. I've been working on something that might interest you. She showed him Sentinel's interface and explained how the system analyzed patterns across seemingly unrelated medical data points, lab results, imaging scans, patient-reported symptoms, to identify correlations that human physicians might miss. The challenge is training data, she admitted. I need real medical records to refine the algorithm, but privacy regulations make that nearly impossible for an independent developer. Dr. Ramos studied the screen, his expression shifting from polite interest to genuine excitement. "This is remarkably sophisticated. How long have you been developing this?" 3 years, though most of that time it was a side project. I've been focused on it full-time for about 2 months now. He looked at her with newfound respect. "There's a research initiative at Berkeley Medical Center. We're collecting anonymized patient data specifically for AI development and diagnostics. If your system is as promising as it seems, I could sponsor your application to access the database." Olivia felt a surge of hope. "That would be incredible." "It won't be easy," he cautioned. "You'll need to pass ethical reviews, security protocols, and demonstrate that your system has genuine scientific merit." "I understand," she said, straightening her shoulders. "I'm prepared to do whatever it takes." 2 weeks later, Olivia found herself presenting Sentinel to the Berkeley Medical Center's Innovation Committee, a panel of doctors, researchers, and medical technologists. As she demonstrated the system's ability to identify patterns in test data, she saw the skepticism in their eyes gradually give way to interest. "Your background is in financial technology, Ms. Mercer," noted Dr. Eleanor Whitman, the committee chair. "What drew you to medical diagnostics?" Olivia took a deep breath. "My grandmother died of a rare form of dementia that was repeatedly misdiagnosed until it was too late for intervention. I watched brilliant doctors struggle to connect the dots because the human mind, remarkable as it is, can only process so much information simultaneously. AI doesn't replace medical expertise, it amplifies it." Dr. Whitman nodded thoughtfully. "And you developed this entirely on your own?" "Yes," Olivia answered, feeling a bittersweet pride. "It's been my passion project for years, though only recently have I been able to devote myself to it completely." After the committee deliberated, Dr. Ramos delivered the news. Sentinel had been approved for the research initiative. Olivia would have access to the anonymized database and workspace at the medical center's innovation lab. That evening, sitting in her small apartment with takeout Chinese food, Olivia scrolled through her emails to find official confirmation of the partnership. As she read through the details, an alert popped up on her phone, a news notification about Quantum Financial Solutions. Against her better judgment, she tapped it open. The headline read, "Quantum faces security breach. Customer data compromised." According to the article, a vulnerability in their latest update had exposed thousands of customers' financial information. The stock had dropped 15% in a single day. Olivia knew exactly what had happened. The security protocols she had designed included a quarterly review process that Daniel had likely deemed unnecessary or too costly after her departure. She felt a complex mixture of emotions: concern for the affected customers, vindication that her systems had been essential, and a small, human part of her that felt a grim satisfaction at Daniel's comeuppance. She closed the article and returned to the Berkeley Medical Center email. Whatever was happening at Quantum was no longer her concern. For the first time in years, Olivia Mercer was following her own path, planting the seeds of innovation that would grow into something far greater than she yet imagined. As she worked, late into the night, refining Sentinel's algorithms to prepare for the influx of new data, she felt a sense of purpose that had been missing during her years with Daniel. This wasn't about proving him wrong anymore. It was about proving herself right. First steps forward. 6 months into her partnership with Berkeley Medical Center, Olivia had transformed Sentinel from a promising prototype into a sophisticated diagnostic system. With access to the anonymized patient database, the AI's pattern recognition capabilities had improved exponentially, particularly for neurological conditions that traditionally eluded early diagnosis. The sensitivity for detecting early-stage Alzheimer's biomarkers is remarkable, Dr. Ramos noted during their weekly review. Sentinel identified correlations between subtle changes in speech patterns and specific protein markers that we wouldn't typically connect for at least another year of symptom progression. Olivia nodded, both proud and humbled. The algorithm still has limitations. False positives remain higher than I'd like, especially in patients with multiple comorbidities. True, but that's why this remains a physician-assisted tool, Dr. Whitman added, joining their conversation. She had become an unexpected ally in recent months. Perfect accuracy isn't the goal yet. Augmenting clinical judgment is. And on that front, Sentinel is already exceeding expectations. As they continued discussing refinements, Olivia's phone buzzed with an email notification. She glanced at it briefly, then did a double-take when she saw the sender. Priya Sharma, Daniel's former marketing executive at Quantum. Everything all right? Dr. Ramos asked, noticing her distraction. Yes, sorry, Olivia replied, putting her phone away. Just an unexpected message from someone I used to work with. Later that evening, in the small office space she'd rented near the medical center, Olivia finally opened Priya's email. Olivia, I hope this finds you well. I've been following your work with Berkeley Medical Center through their published research bulletins. What you're building with Sentinel is extraordinary. I left Quantum 3 months ago. The company culture became unsustainable after you departed. The security breach was just the beginning of their troubles. I'm reaching out because I've recently joined Helix Ventures, a VC firm focusing on healthcare innovation. We're hosting a pitch event for emerging medical technologies next month. Would you consider presenting Sentinel? Several major healthcare systems will be attending, looking for solutions exactly like yours. This could be an opportunity to take your work beyond research and into real-world application. Let me know if you'd like to discuss further. Best regards, Priya Sharma, partner, Helix Ventures. Olivia read the email twice, her heart racing. Sentinel had been thriving in the protective bubble of academic research, but bringing it to commercial investors was a step she hadn't yet considered, partly because her severance money had run out, and she'd been supplementing her income with freelance coding projects, leaving little time for business development. After sleeping on the decision, Olivia called Priya the next morning. I was hoping you'd reach out, Priya said warmly. How are you, really? Better than I expected, Olivia admitted. Busier than ever, but it's different when you're building something you believe in. I understand completely. That's why I left Quantum. After seeing how Daniel handled your departure and then blamed everyone but himself for the security breach, I knew I needed a change. Olivia appreciated that Priya didn't dwell on Daniel. Tell me more about this pitch event. Sentinel is still technically a research project. We have promising results, but we're months away from clinical trials. That's exactly the stage most of our investors are looking for, Priya explained. They want to identify breakthrough technologies before they're market-ready, provide the capital needed for that final development push, and establish early partnerships with the innovators behind them. By the end of the call, Olivia had agreed to present at the event, and Priya had promised to help her prepare a pitch that would emphasize Sentinel's potential without overstating its current capabilities. The following weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Olivia had never created an investor pitch before, and the process forced her to think beyond algorithms and data sets to business models and market strategy. You need a company, not just a product, Priya advised during one of their preparation sessions. Investors are betting on you as much as they're betting on Sentinel. With Priya's guidance, Olivia established Sentinel Health Technologies, officially transitioning from independent developer to founder and CEO. Dr. Ramos agreed to join her advisory board, lending credibility to the fledgling company, and Berkeley Medical Center negotiated a licensing agreement for the research they'd contributed to Sentinel's development. The night before the pitch event, Olivia stood in front of her bathroom mirror, hardly recognizing herself. Gone was the perpetually exhausted woman who had lived in Daniel's shadow. In her place stood someone with clear eyes and purpose, wearing a simple but elegant blazer that projected competence rather than seeking approval. The pitch event was held at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, its clean lines and innovative architecture setting the tone for the gathering of investors and entrepreneurs. As Olivia arranged her demonstration materials at her assigned booth, a familiar voice nearly made her drop her tablet. They gave you prime real estate, corner booth with the best lighting. Olivia turned to find Priya smiling at her, looking every inch the venture capital partner in a tailored suit. Is that good or bad? Olivia asked. Very good. It means the organizing committee was impressed by your preliminary materials. Priya lowered her voice. Including Jerome Wilson from Asclepius, Healthcare. He rarely attends these events, but he specifically asked about your presentation slot. Olivia's eyes widened. Asclepius was one of the largest healthcare system operators in the country. No pressure then. Priya squeezed her arm encouragingly. You've got this. Just remember, these people need you more than you need any one of them. Your technology has the potential to save lives. Their money is just a tool to help you do it faster. The event began with a cocktail hour, during which Olivia navigated conversations with various investors and industry representatives. She was surprised by how naturally she fell into discussing Sentinel's capabilities. Not as Daniel's former assistant explaining his vision, but as a founder articulating her own. When it came time for her formal presentation, Olivia faced a room of 40 investors and healthcare executives. She began not with technical specifications, but with a story. My grandmother started mixing up her children's names when she was 62. My family thought it was just a sign of aging. Her doctor agreed. 3 years and 4 medical opinions. Later, she was finally diagnosed with a rare form of frontotemporal dementia. By then, the disease had progressed beyond any meaningful intervention. She paused, making eye contact with different audience members. This story is not unique. Every day, patients with subtle symptoms that don't fit cleanly into diagnostic patterns fall through the cracks of our medical system. Not because their doctors aren't skilled or dedicated, but because the human mind, even the brilliant mind, of a trained physician, can only process so many variables simultaneously. She tapped her tablet, and the large screen behind her came to life with Sentinel's interface. Sentinel doesn't replace medical expertise. It amplifies it by identifying correlations across vast data sets that would be impossible for any individual to parse. In our initial studies with Berkeley Medical Center, it has demonstrated a 64% improvement in early detection rates for 5 major neurodegenerative conditions, potentially adding years of intervention time before symptoms become debilitating. For the next 15 minutes, Olivia walked the audience through Sentinel's functionality, clinical results, and roadmap for development. She concluded by addressing the business case directly. Healthcare AI is already a crowded field, but most existing solutions focus on administrative efficiency or broad population health metrics. Sentinel targets the diagnostic process itself, addressing the most expensive and heartbreaking failures in our healthcare system, late or missed diagnoses of conditions that become exponentially more costly and devastating with time. As she fielded questions from the audience, Olivia noticed a distinguished man in the back row watching intently but not asking anything. Based on Priya's description, she guessed this was Jerome Wilson from Asclepius. After the formal presentations concluded, investors circulated among the booths for more detailed discussions. Olivia had just finished demonstrating Sentinel's pattern recognition capabilities to a group from a pharmaceutical investment fund when Jerome Wilson finally approached. Ms. Mercer, he said, extending his hand. Jerome Wilson, your presentation was compelling. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I appreciate you taking the time to attend. Time is precisely what interests me about Sentinel, he replied. The potential to gain years of intervention opportunity through earlier diagnosis. That's not just good medicine, it's transformative healthcare economics. He asked several penetrating questions about Sentinel's validation process and scalability. Unlike many of the other investors who seemed most interested in how quickly they could see returns, Wilson's focus remained on the technology's impact on patient outcomes. Asclepius operates 27 hospitals and over 300 outpatient centers across the country, he said eventually. We've been searching for AI diagnostic solutions that integrate with our existing systems without disrupting physician workflows. I'd like to discuss the possibility of a pilot program, assuming your next round of validation produces results consistent with your preliminary data. Olivia maintained her composure, but her pulse quickened. I would welcome that conversation, Mr. Wilson. As the event wound down, Olivia found herself surrounded by business cards and follow-up meeting requests. Priya appeared at her side, barely containing her excitement. 7 serious investor inquiries and a potential pilot with Asclepius, she whispered. Olivia, do you realize what just happened? You didn't just launch a company tonight, you announced the arrival of a major new player in healthcare technology. Later that night, as Olivia returned to her apartment, exhausted but exhilarated, she opened her laptop to find dozens of congratulatory emails from attendees. Among them was a message from Dr. Ramos, with a link to a tech industry news site. The headline read, Quantum Financial Solutions CEO steps down amid continued security concerns. The article included a photo of Daniel looking harried as he left Quantum's headquarters. For a moment, Olivia felt a twinge of complicated emotion, not quite sympathy, not quite satisfaction. Then she closed the browser. Daniel's story was no longer intertwined with hers. She opened a new document and began typing notes for tomorrow's follow-up meetings. Sentinel Health Technologies had taken its first steps forward, and there was no looking back. Market disruption, 18 months. After the pitch event, Sentinel Health Technologies had evolved from a promising startup into an industry disruptor. With $18 million in Series A funding, led by Helix Ventures with Jerome Wilson's Asclepius Healthcare as a strategic investor, Olivia had built a team of 30 specialists spanning medical data science, software engineering, and clinical integration. Their headquarters occupied the top floor of a renovated industrial building in Emeryville, with windows overlooking the San Francisco Bay. On this particular morning, Olivia stood in the conference room with her executive team, preparing for a milestone announcement. The FDA just confirmed, announced Regina Walters, Sentinel's chief medical officer and former head of neurology at Johns Hopkins. We've received breakthrough device designation for the Alzheimer's diagnostic module. A cheer went up around the table. The designation would accelerate their regulatory pathway and signal to healthcare providers that Sentinel represented a significant advance over existing diagnostic methods. This is just the beginning, Olivia reminded them, though she couldn't suppress her own smile. The real validation will come from the multi-center clinical trial results next quarter. Those trials, running simultaneously at 12 major medical centers across the country, including 5 Asclepius hospitals, were testing Sentinel's ability to identify patients with early-stage neurodegenerative conditions before symptoms became clinically apparent. The preliminary data had been promising enough to attract attention throughout the healthcare industry. After the meeting dispersed, Priya, who had joined Sentinel as Chief Strategy Officer 6 months earlier, lingered behind. We should discuss the Neurotech Summit next week, she said. The organizers have asked if you'd consider participating in the keynote panel on AI's frontiers in neurological care. Olivia hesitated. Who else is on the panel? Priya handed her a tablet with the summit agenda. Dr. Nguyen from Stanford, neuroscience Dr. Okafor from the National Institutes of Health, and she paused. Wesley Hammond from Hammond Biotech. Olivia recognized the name immediately. Hammond Biotech was their most direct competitor, a well-established player in healthcare AI that had recently pivoted toward diagnostic applications after Sentinel began generating industry buzz. Wesley Hammond has been publicly skeptical about our approach, Olivia noted, scrolling through the panel description. He's been promoting their deep diagnostic platform as the responsible alternative to what he calls our aggressive pattern matching. All the more reason for you to be on that panel, Priya argued. Hammond has industry credibility and connections, but their technology is fundamentally reactive rather than predictive. This is your chance to set the record straight on a major stage. Olivia agreed, though not without reservations. Unlike Daniel, who had relished public confrontations with rivals, she preferred letting results speak for themselves. But as Sentinel's profile rose, so did the necessity of defending its methodology against established competitors trying to protect their market position. The Neurotech Summit was held at the Moscone Center in downtown San Francisco, drawing thousands of attendees from healthcare systems, medical technology companies, and research institutions worldwide. As Olivia prepared backstage for the keynote panel, she overheard a familiar voice. Simply irresponsible to suggest that an algorithm with limited clinical validation can outperform traditional diagnostic protocols refined over decades of medical practice. Wesley Hammond stood nearby in conversation with a journalist, his silver hair and tailored suit projecting the gravitas of his 30 years in healthcare technology. At 58, he represented the old guard of medical innovation, methodical, incremental, and deeply connected to traditional healthcare hierarchies. The panel moderator, Dr. Vivian Tate of the California Medical Association, gathered the speakers moments before they were due on stage. "We'll begin with brief opening statements on your vision for AI in neurological care," she explained, then move to specific questions about efficacy, implementation challenges, and ethical considerations. Our audience includes many practicing clinicians, so please keep technical jargon to a minimum. The panelists nodded their understanding. As they took their places on stage before an audience of nearly 2,000, Olivia found herself seated, directly beside Hammond, who acknowledged her with a cordial but cool nod. After Dr. Nguyen and Dr. Okafor presented their academic perspectives on AI's evolving role in neuroscience, Hammond delivered a polished statement emphasizing his company's commitment to augmenting rather than replacing clinical judgment and their partnership approach with medical authorities, both implicit criticisms of what he perceived as Sentinel's more disruptive methodology. When Olivia's turn came, she spoke directly to the clinicians in the audience. Sentinel was born from a fundamental question. What if we could identify patterns in patient data that emerge before symptoms become obvious enough for current diagnostic thresholds? Our approach isn't about replacing physicians. It's about giving them tools to see earlier, deeper, and more comprehensively than ever before. She displayed a single slide showing the results from their first completed clinical trial. A 72% improvement in early detection of Parkinson's disease compared to standard diagnostic protocols. "These aren't theoretical projections," she continued. "These are peer-reviewed results from real patients whose treatment trajectories were fundamentally altered by earlier intervention. That's not disruption for disruption's sake. It's progress, measured in years of improved quality of life." The moderator then directed a question to Hammond and Olivia simultaneously. "Both of your companies are developing AI for neurological diagnostics, but with seemingly different philosophical approaches. How would you characterize the key differences, and why do you believe your approach will ultimately prove more effective for patients?" Hammond responded first, his tone measured and authoritative. "Deep diagnostic integrates with existing diagnostic frameworks, enhancing physician capabilities without challenging the fundamental clinical decision-making process. We believe evolution, not revolution, is the responsible path forward in something as critical as neurological care." He turned slightly toward Olivia. While Ms. Mercer's enthusiasm is commendable, Hammond Biotech's approach reflects 3 decades of experience in healthcare technology implementation. Revolutionary claims require extraordinary evidence, and we believe the jury is still out on whether pattern recognition alone, without the context of comprehensive clinical evaluation, can reliably predict complex neurological conditions. When Hammond used Ms. Mercer rather than Dr. Mercer, a subtle reminder that she lacked the medical credentials he considered essential, Olivia noted several physicians in the audience exchange glances. "First," Olivia responded calmly, "I completely agree that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. That's why Sentinel has invested so heavily in rigorous clinical trials, 12 concurrent studies across major medical institutions, with full transparency in methodology and outcomes." She smiled slightly. "As for revolutionary versus evolutionary approaches, I'd suggest that patients with degenerative conditions don't have the luxury of waiting for incremental improvements." She turned to address the audience directly. "The distinction isn't really about revolution versus evolution. It's about whether we design technology around existing healthcare structures or around the underlying biology of disease progression. Sentinel chose the latter because neural degeneration doesn't conform to our diagnostic convenience. It begins years before our current detection thresholds." Dr. Okafor from NIH leaned forward. "If I may add, the preliminary data from Sentinel's trials that I've reviewed suggest they've identified biomarker correlations that simply weren't visible before their pattern recognition approach. This isn't about replacing clinical judgment. It's about expanding the information available for that judgment. The discussion continued for another 40 minutes, ranging from technical questions about false positive rates to ethical concerns about predictive diagnostics. Throughout, Hammond maintained his position as the voice of established medical technology, while Olivia articulated Sentinel's evidence-based case for transformation. As the panel concluded, Hammond approached Olivia backstage. "Impressive performance," he said, his expression difficult to read. "Your passion is evident, but passion doesn't change the fact that healthcare systems move slowly for good reason. Caution protects patients." "So does timely diagnosis," Olivia replied. "The patients in our trials gained an average of 2.3 years of intervention time. That's not just a statistic, it's thousands of better days with their families." Hammond's expression softened slightly. "Look, I don't doubt your intentions, but you're challenging decades of established medical practice. The pushback you're experiencing isn't just about protecting market share, it's about legitimate concerns from clinicians who've seen too many promising technologies fail to deliver in real-world settings." "I understand that," Olivia acknowledged, "which is why we're letting the data lead. If our approach doesn't hold up under scientific scrutiny, we'll adapt. But so far, the results speak for themselves." Hammond studied her for a moment. "Sentinel has certainly made an impression. I'll be watching your trial results with interest." He handed her his business card. "My door is open if you ever want to discuss potential collaboration rather than competition. Sometimes combining approaches yields better outcomes than either alone." Olivia accepted the card, surprised by the overture. "I appreciate that, Mr. Hammond." As she left the convention center, Olivia's phone buzzed with a news alert. Hammond Biotech stock drops 8% following Sentinel's clinical trial announcement. The market was reacting to their public confrontation, already assessing winners and losers. But unlike the satisfaction she might once have felt at outmaneuvering a competitor, Olivia felt only a heightened sense of responsibility. Every fluctuation in their company's fortunes now affected patients' access to potentially life-changing technology. That evening, as she reviewed the day's events with her leadership team over dinner, Regina raised a concern that had been brewing for weeks. "The FDA breakthrough designation is accelerating our regulatory pathway, but healthcare systems are still hesitant to commit to full implementation. They want more evidence of economic benefit alongside the clinical outcomes." Olivia nodded. "Jerome Wilson at Asclepius warned me about this. Clinical validation isn't enough. We need to demonstrate cost-effectiveness across the entire care continuum, which means expanding our trials to track not just diagnostic accuracy, but downstream impacts on treatment costs and outcomes," added Trevor Williams, their chief technology officer. "That's a much longer and more complex research process." "Unless," Priya interjected, "we can get access to historical patient data that allows us to model those outcomes retrospectively." All eyes turned to her. "I've been in discussions with the National Health Data Consortium," Priya continued. "They maintain anonymized records of over 3 million patients with neurological conditions, including complete treatment histories and cost data. If we could apply Sentinel's algorithms to that dataset, we could demonstrate both clinical and economic impact without waiting years for prospective studies," Olivia finished, immediately grasping the potential. "Exactly. But access to that data doesn't come easily. The consortium has never granted a private company full analytical rights to their database." Olivia considered this challenge. "What would it take?" "A formal proposal demonstrating exceptional public health benefit, ironclad security protocols, and—" Priya hesitated. "The endorsement of recognized authorities in both neurology and health economics." "Dr. Walters covers the neurology side," Olivia noted, nodding toward Regina. "But health economics—" "Dr. Elijah Montgomery," Regina suggested. "He's the leading health economist specializing in neurodegenerative disease burden. His endorsement would carry significant weight with the consortium." "And where does Dr. Montgomery work?" Olivia asked, already suspecting the answer from Regina's expression. He's the chief research officer at Hammond Biotech. A thoughtful silence fell over the table as the implications became clear. To secure the data that could accelerate Sentinel's market adoption, they might need to collaborate with their most formidable competitor. Olivia fingered the business card Hammond had given her earlier that day. The healthcare technology landscape was shifting beneath their feet, transforming from simple competition into a complex ecosystem where rivals might also need to be partners. "I'll call Hammond in the morning," she decided. "If Montgomery's research could help bring Sentinel's benefits to patients faster, we need to explore the possibility, competitor or not." As the dinner concluded, Olivia stepped onto the restaurant's terrace overlooking the bay. The lights of San Francisco glittered across the water, reminding her of nights spent gazing at the same view from Daniel's penthouse, feeling like a spectator in her own life. Now, standing alone with the weight of a growing company on her shoulders, she felt fully present in a way she never had before. Sentinel wasn't just disrupting the market. It had transformed her from someone's support system into a leader charting her own course through uncharted waters.